So whilst the servers have been down today for Destiny 2, as they're doing maintenance and it's been extended, etc., etc., I had a bright idea. And that was to make a solo PVE meta infographic. And it will explain a lot about the loadouts that I use and why I use them. Because there's a massive misunderstanding with some of the loadouts that I use, and people they either get mad at me, or they get confused with me, or they don't want to talk to me again because I've used a certain weapon. I'm going back over years. I've probably spoken to thousands of players at this point about loadouts and the meta and what isn't the meta and what's sort of in between, and people just get a massive misunderstanding with me. So this video will hopefully clear things up a little bit. Just a reminder that make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. The reasons that you want to do this are as follows. The Human Torch was refused a bank loan. The Human Torch was refused a bank loan. This is what I say when I'm warming up for my commentary. That's why you need to subscribe. So let's explain this infographic. Now, disclaimer, I can't fit everything on this picture. These are but examples of each category. So imagine the meta, right? PVE meta as a time scale, as a massive line. On one end we have OP, which means overpowered, of course, and at the other hand on the other side we have the worst stuff. So let's explain each category and go through it. Now remember, I can't fit every single piece that I want to on this picture. It is but just to give you examples of everything and how I fit into the meta and how I present content to you. Are we understanding? I hope so. Let's get into it. So OP, we have Prismatic Titan, Hunter, Warlock. They are the meta subclasses. They are better than Arc, Solar, Void, Stasis, Strand, because they've got too much going for them. The Transcendence bar meter itself is more than enough for you to pick Prismatic over a full elemental class. I hope we're all clear on that. Prismatic is better than all other classes. Now I know that they've buffed Roman Surplus, and I know that they've buffed certain things, but that doesn't matter. You have Transcendence. Transcendence is OP. Not only that, you can pick which super you want, and then you can pick which fragments you want, and then you can do all this stuff. Right? So that's the first part of it. Let's go down to the next layer. We've got Anarchy, Choir of One, Celestial Night Orc. That's just basically saying to you, these are the types of weapons we use for solo DPS in dungeons. Right? So take, for example, Vesper's Host. Right? Night Orc on a Prismatic. I know it's bugged right now, but obviously it's really good. You've got other exotics that I haven't put on there, like Symphoseps. Right? Laurie Splendor for the Vesper's Host on a Titan. You've got all sorts of things going on for solo DPS. These are just but examples. Also, they work well in solo Grandmasters. I've showed you a solo GM with Choir of One and the power of it, because it's an energy weapon, really good on ammo economy, and still hits like a truck, despite the ammo nerf that it got. Anarchy's on there for clear reasons. Witherhoard would be on there as well. And Area Denial GL, we've got that on because they are the best weapons in the game for Transcendence Energy. Witherhoard does the same because it feels light and dark, helps you get your Transcendence back to back. Area Denial GLs are literally stronger than Mountaintop because of the amount of Transcendence Energy that you're getting, therefore they are absolute true meta. Grand Overture is another one with your missiles that you can load up, your 20 missiles and all that stuff, and do massive damage, and they've increased damage to blinded targets. Exdirus is in the meta. It's actually there. You maybe need to start using it. Use it with a Hunter Moth Keeper's Wrap build or whatever. You keep getting Overshield. It's so damn OP. I haven't got round to making a video on it yet, but it will happen. So those are good examples of the OP for solo DPS and solo GM environments. Obviously champs, other things that go like a Wish Ender, things that we can stun champs easy. Le Monarch, that's within the solo PvE meta because you can easily stun overloads, Wish Ender, etc, etc. So we understand that. Let's go to the next. This is where I live. This is where my house is. So we've got the two categories, outside of meta and in meta but hidden. So in meta but hidden means no, These exotics are fantastic, just no one's barely using them, but because they're stuck on Transcendence or they're stuck on Prismatic and they're not maybe thinking about it. Chaos Reach, Geomag Stabilizer is hitting like a truck. Now, even with without Arc Surge, it's hitting like a truck. Now, imagine this week, because we've got Arc Surge up, hitting like a truck. We've got the chest plate, where you keep getting your rift back. I forget the name of it, man. It's the icon right there. Vesper of Radius, is it? Vesper of Radius? Yeah. That is a fantastic chest plate. It's maybe quite not in meta, but it's just on the outskirts of being meta. What's keeping it out of being meta is Prismatic. But whenever you're surrounded, having this chest plate gives you so much rift energy. Right, now let's go down to Deterministic Chaos. That is in meta for solo GM environment because we can stun barrier champs. Anti-barrier scout rifle is not very good this season. If you don't want to use Wish Ender or Arbalest or something like that, Deterministic Chaos opens loadouts up. It's a fantastic gun. It weakens targets. It makes targets volatile. All this stuff going for Deterministic Chaos. It's really good for GMs, not good for solo DPS. But it is GM. We have Queenbreaker Bow to its right. Queenbreaker Bow is a self-buffing gun because of the Arc Compounding mod. I gave you the video yesterday about it. It buffs against bosses, champs, everything. 15% self-buff because of the Arc Compounding buff, because it blinds targets on hit. This is Wendigo in Linear Fusion Rifle format. It is almost certainly meta or just slightly outside of it. Darcy's another one. It jolts on hit. It will stun overlords. So will Queenbreaker Bow. Queenbreaker Bow will stun unstoppables, not overlords. It will stun unstoppables, right? Whereas Darcy will stun overlords and adds jolt. Darcy's fantastic. Honestly, he's really good in solo GM environment. Right, now we go to outside of meta. This is the stuff that I post a lot about. So like Raid and Flux. It's had a huge buff. And it's actually creeping its way to meta. Not quite. I'll tell you what's keeping Raid and Flux out of meta. It's Transcendence. It's Prismatic. Because there's no Arc Staff on Prismatic. But I guarantee you, if Arc Staff was on Prismatic, Raid and Flux would be in the meta. What's keeping it out of meta is that you have to run an Arc subclass. But Arc subclass is pretty good with the seasonal buffs, seasonal modifications this season. So that's why I put an Arc subclasses are doing okay, like Curse Reach, Raid and Flux. You know, Fist of Havoc has gotten a buff recently. I haven't really tried it, but Arc's starting to come up a little bit. We have another weapon here, Osteostrigger. Osteostrigger is certainly just before meta. Now you're going to see it got hit with nerfs. I have tested Osteo. It's fantastic. We have Overload SMG up again. It's really good because of its poison damage. Now, yeah, they've hit it with stuff, and this poison does not spread out as much as it used to. But after my testing, last season and this season, I can confidently tell you it's still a fantastic weapon to use. Do not believe people who say Osteo is bad. It's actually still really good. Okay, another weapon, Eriana's Vow. Eriana's Vow was rubbish for years. Alright, it launched really well because it was the only option that we had. It then got really good. Like recently, one shot in the barrier champs again, setting off massive ignitions. Eriana's Vow is not meta pick, because in a solo GM environment you would still probably want something else, I think, personally. But it's creeping in a little bit. These are just examples. There's more examples than what I'm presenting to you here, as I've stated numerous times. Let's go to the next category because I'm running out of time. We've got average category. 1K Voices, No Time to Explain, Delicate Tomb, The Lament, Centrifuge, Lawrence Driver, and there's much more, many more examples of below average or below exotics that we use in the game. All of those exotics are average. Lament got hit with too many nerfs. It's not doing the damage we want it to. You're not surviving as much as we used to be able to with it. Lament has really flushed out of the meta. It's unfortunate because when Lament performs, well, it becomes true meta solo wise because you can survive. Right, dungeon or GM. You can use it in GMs as well, obviously with like a Stronghold Titan build. 1K Voices hits hard enough, but doesn't have a mag. It doesn't have the ammo to do it. The total ammo's pants on it. It's not good enough. It needs a catalyst for inventory size buff. no time to explain. It's not hitting hard enough. Outbreak Perfected is a far superior option, which is meta. I haven't put Outbreak on there, but obviously we know Outbreak Perfected is meta. Lawrence Driver is a random linear fusion rifle that nobody uses in PvE. It's more of a PvP weapon, I believe. It gets some use in there. I never use this thing, so it can't be anywhere near the meta, and it can't be hidden as a meta option either. I highly doubt it. So, coming to dusty items, this refers to items that you keep in your vault and never use. We've got Rat King, we've got Cerberus, the auto rifle. We've got a glaive. All of the exotic glaives are dusty items. Nobody uses the exotic glaives. Nobody uses the exotic glaives. They're just not on the menu. I mean the special ones. I don't mean the heavy one. The heavy one's actually got some utility, the heavy glaive, but the exotic special glaives for Warlock, Titan, Hunter, they don't get used. They're dusty. They're a dusty item. Here Apparent, whilst it shined with some mods in the past, it's not very good of a gun. It's got too much of a range drop off. It's not doing the damage that we want it to, so it's just not there. Symmetry is a poor arc scout rifle. It doesn't hit nowhere near hard enough for GMs. It's no use in a dungeon either. Crimson, Crimson is pointless. It is a PvP weapon. Red Death basically trumps Crimson, which Red Death is meta, because when we need healing on demand via a gun, for whatever reason, Red Death fills that role. So it's within the meta for solo play. Wherever it depends on what you're doing, of course, but it's within that conversation, right? It definitely is. What else have we got on there? And there's more dusty items. I've got hundreds of items I could think about. I have got Void on there, so that means Sentinel Shield. Sentinel Shield has been bad for such a long time. Now, I'm going to have a look at Sentinel Shield this week to see what it's doing, but I foresee us not using it. Let's see what happens. Let's see if it can turn from dusty to hidden meta choice. I don't know that yet, but I'm putting it in the dusty place until I'm proven otherwise. And then we have our final category, No Man's Land, and we got to put Mida Multi-Tool in there. If you run a solo GM with Mida Multi-Tool, you are in No Man's Land. You're in that place between heaven and hell, whatever they call it. You're there, and you're in a infinite solo GM environment where you just soloing over and over, trying to complete it with Mida Multi-Tool, and you just can't do it. So you put on Callus Mini Tool to help you, but then you're running double primary, and then you can't even do it. So there's some items I could have put in No Man's Land as well. I'm just giving you an example of a weapon that doesn't make sense in PvE, because obviously a PvP weapon. So I hope that this infographic makes sense to you. I've put here, I live here between outside of meta and in the meta but hidden. I live mainly in that category to try and show off some unique gameplay that might not have been shown to you by anyone else. Or that's the hope, at least. So I tried to find hidden metas. I already understand what the OP meta is. I have a great understanding, deep understanding of the game. So I'm trying to find out hidden things. Let me remind you, Grand Overture used to be outside of the meta, and I used to use it as a meta weapon. It's only of the last few, I think, year or 18 months where it's crept up into the meta, but I was using it years ago, man, when it first came out, and I said the total ammo count on Grand Overture with the missiles is extremely useful. Guess what? We get the hardest dungeon going, Vesper's Host. Turns out it's one of the best weapons in the game for DPS against Vesper's Host, the boss, right? So it's crept up in that meta. Weapons out of the meta will sneak into the meta, and then people start to discover that and like, oh, this is good, that's good. How long has that been good for? Oh, well, a few months. Why did no one test it? Or because everybody listens to the guy that says, don't use that, don't use this. And that's how things get missed in the game when we're talking about meta scaling for solo gameplay. That was my infographic on that. This can be updated in the future, of course. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.